Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show before the show, the 558th episode of the show before the show, which I guess canonically speaking is true. We've done some special episodes along the way that always throws the count off. But in your feed, this is episode 558. You are once again stuck with me, Sam Dykstra, leading the charge this week as Tyler Mon continues to gallivant across Europe ahead of Honkball Week in the Netherlands. Very jealous that he has made it to the Netherlands. He is in Amsterdam right now. A lot of it will be around Haarlem, just outside Amsterdam. So follow Tyler. I'm sure he'll be posting all sorts of stuff surrounded by Honkball Week and the fun that's happening out there. But in the meantime, like I said, you are stuck with me opening up this week's episode, but I'm not alone, as I rarely am on this show. I'm joined by Benjamin Hill, sitting to my left. Ben, how are you?
Doing all right. I mean, you said you're leading the charge, which I guess is true, but what am I doing? Just along for the ride?
We're
Just
we're
like, am
we're
I in
co-leading the
am
charge.
I in your like little sidecar on the bike? You're like in the driver's seat and I'm like the little sidekick.
Yeah, I think that's a fun visual
Yeah.
for the listeners at home. That I am on the motorcycle and you are in my little sidecar, pointing out which streets we should be cutting through as we tell the stories of minor league baseball.
All right, that sounds actually accurate. I'm no longer offended. That works. I was trying to look up what the area code for 558 is. It just occurred to me. I always like to do
Oh
other
yeah,
things like, with my newsletter, like what edition of the newsletter it is, trying to find something tied into the number. I can't get my internet to work. Oh, it's not valid or assigned, at least here in the US.
but next week we have Fresno, Hanford, Madera, Tulare, Visalia, parts of the
Oh,
Joaquin
yeah,
Valley, and
Central Valley, California, represent.
okay, so we'll have to think of something for episode 559. We already got some irons in the fire as far as that goes, but maybe we can do something around that area of California.
I like that. I mean, it's a new idea. Whatever episode number it is, we salute that area code.
And minor league baseball being what it is, it touches a lot of different area codes. So I'm sure we're probably getting into that time where we could find some minor league connection everywhere. But that's planning for next week. This week's show, we'll start out as we always do with Ben's Biz Banter presented by Circle K, the official convenience store of minor league baseball. And we'll touch here on some upcoming promotions, including one that's happening tonight on Thursday. So it'll be a day after this episode comes out. But it is one of my favorite promotions, or I don't even know if I want to call it a promotion. It's so much of as like a community service event that is happening in Des Moines, Iowa, with the Iowa Cubs. We've actually featured this on the show in the past. Um, and I encourage people to go back and listen to that for more details. But it's the citizenship ceremony with the Iowa Cubs. And Ben, what can you tell us about that and what's happening for them here on Thursday, June 25th, 2026, in their citizenship ceremony?
Yeah, Sam, like you said, this is one we've featured on the show before. We've talked about multiple times. I just always think it's worth bringing it up. The Iowa Cubs tonight is their 18th annual citizenship ceremony. And this time around, they're welcoming 29 new citizens from 16 countries. As I said, this is the 18th annual time they've done this, dating back to 2009. And I just think it's one of the coolest traditions in minor league baseball. Um, Usually they do it closer to July 4th proper, but it's a little bit earlier this year. And I wrote about this in 2020. Actually, I wrote an article about it, during a unique circumstances in 2020 when, they had to do a more social distanced ceremony. But there's some information in that article just about how this came about. And the longtime owner of the Iowa Cubs, he does not own the team anymore, Michael Gartner. He knew a judge named the Honorable Robert W. Pratt, who came up with the idea of staging the ceremony, which is usually conducted in a courtroom, at the ballpark. Michael Gartner, the team owner, was like immediately on board with that because, like, what a cool idea. Instead of just being in a courtroom, a rather drab location, you can do it at a ballpark and tie it in with your July 4th Independence Day festivities. And what's more American than becoming a citizen, like right around the 4th of July at a ballpark? And Michael Gardner told me that, he says, Judge Pratt, he gives an unbelievable speech. There's not a dry eye in the house. It's the only game of the year where I allow the start to be delayed. It combines baseball and citizenship and fireworks, everything American but mom and the apple pie. So I don't know. I want to make it out there for one of these one time, talk to some of the new citizens, just use the excuse of this ball game to just tell the stories of people who come from literally all over the country to start their life in America. And it's part of the reason we're a country. And it's an interesting, it's just interesting to hear people's stories and, not to get all corny about it, but that's what I've liked about my job in general is you can just use minor league baseball no matter what it is as an excuse to talk to people and you can venture far outside, the realm of sports or hard sports news, just covering who's at the ballpark and why. And so a good one tonight at Principal Park, home of the Iowa Cubs.
Yeah, and one thing it underlines for me too is that especially in my job and in my beat, you start to think of ballparks as just player development centers of like this is where players get better every day and then they move on to the next place. One thing that I think we do a good job of on the show and generally on MLB.com, but it's just worth highlighting again that minor league ballparks are city centers, community centers. They're places where people gather in the summer. And especially in places like Iowa and in places in the north where after all winter you're stowed up inside. It's an opportunity to get out and see everybody and gather around the game that is happening in front of you. And what better way to celebrate that sense of community by welcoming new people into that community officially. I mean, in most cases, these are people who have been around for a very long time. They're just officially waiting to get that piece of paper that says you are a United States citizen, but they are certainly citizens of the community. But they get that special ceremony too. And I'm glad they do it every year. I'm glad it's into its 18th year. May it continue for 18 more and then 18 more beyond that and on and on and on into infinitum. But
Infinitum.
sure,
I
why
like
not?
that. I like
Let's just
that.
keep going.
I always say infinitum, but I guess it is infinitum.
Yeah.
Ad infin I don't, well, that's like one of many words. I don't really say, I pronounce it in my head as infinitum. There's so many words that I sometimes use in my
You write them,
writing
but you don't.
and never say them and no
Yeah.
one says them and I know what it means and I like the word in theory. But anyway, that's a good,
On and on to forever.
yeah.
To pull a porky pig, let me just say a different word that's much more easier to say.
There you go.
Uh,
But yeah, there's a lot. Obviously, the Iowa Cubs, what they're doing is a little bit early, as I said, but tied in with traditional July 4th festivities, and we'll talk about more about this next week. But we're coming up on July, so not only is it Independence Day, but it is the 250th anniversary celebration. So if you're listening to this and you haven't considered it already, check out what's going on at your minor league ballpark. There's some teams who might be on the road for July 4th proper or around this time, and they're still doing just big ballpark blowout events with historical reenactors and fireworks and community choirs singing songs and on and on and on and so on and so forth. So there's a lot going on at your local minor league ballpark to celebrate the semi-quincentennial, including the Somerset Patriots playing 3 games as the semi-quincentennials, which is, of course, the 19-letter word that literally means 250th anniversary. So it's going to be a great time to attend a minor league game and for the minor league teams themselves. They certainly enjoy a disproportionate amount of revenue over this time of year, generally speaking, and especially coming up in early July with everything going on. So if you want to be part of a crowd and get that real American spirit and energy, head to the ballpark.
this is already turning into a budget meeting for next week's episode because now I want to just turn the entire first segment into a July 4th roundup or preview, as it were. So I think I'm gonna when we delete the rundown for this week, I'm immediately gonna put that in for next week and to get everybody ready for. I'm sure teams love it that this year 4th of July is on a Saturday. Excuse me, and then people are getting that Friday off as well in many cases. So anyway, lots to talk about next week in terms of 4th of July. But in the more immediate future, Ben, Jacksonville, which always seems like it's doing something kooky and something that grabs our attention. And that's the whole point of a promotion is to get attention. They have another promo coming up soon, which is That's What She Said Night. And I can only imagine how they are going to pull this off. But what details do you have about the Jumbo Shrimp's next meme-worthy promotion?
Yeah, it's actually tonight, Thursday, so it'll have happened when you listen to this. That's what she said night. And the team in their promo write up starts with Get your mind out of the gutter. This is just a night, Sam, dedicated to famous quotes by women.
Now it just sounds like I'm doubting
Yeah,
quotes of like
yeah. I mean, what
Susan B.
else?
Anthony quotes
What
as
else?
anything by any woman ever. And we're just like, why would they do this? This is kooky.
Yeah, exactly.
That is not the official statement of the show before the show. I
Yeah,
thought it was going a different direction, but that is great. I'm glad they are sharing quotes from women.
I set you up for that one.
I did.
That's what she said. Night is simply great quotes by women throughout American history. That's what she said.
That is what she
That
said.
is literally what she said. But tied in with that, we have Kate Flannery from The Office. She was Meredith, I believe, and she's among the cadre of actors from The Office who make the rounds every year at minor league ballparks. And she was recently in Lehigh Valley with the Iron Pigs, and now she's heading to Indianapolis to see the Indianapolis Indians at Victory Field. So I only do that segue because that's what she said was made famous from The Office. And we, of course, per usual, have Office stars gallivanting around the country visiting teams. I haven't seen as many this year. Yeah, Kate Flannery, obviously, with a few dates. We usually see Brian Baumgartner, Stanley doing some stuff. Um, he was Kevin. We also see Stanley at the ballpark as well, doing some things. It feels like a long time ago that The Office. It seemed like every minor league team's social media, 80% of it was like Office quotes and gifs. It feels we've moved on to the Gen Z era, but the millennials, it was all about referencing The Office. And I don't know. I kind of like that level of celebrity. Like, be a ensemble player in a hit sitcom and then just have people love you for the rest of your life, visit minor league ballparks, get those royalty or residual checks. So if anyone wants me in a sitcom, I'm all about it. I'm all
Ben
about it.
Ben just wants to ride the rails of minor league promotions the rest of his career. I mean, I got a taste of that in Reading a few weeks ago when I was there for Seinfeld night and John O'Hurley was there.
Oh yeah, Jay Peterman. Yeah.
Yeah, Jay Peterman. So they were playing Jay Peterman clips throughout the night, and they were doing various Seinfeld things. But I wonder if there would ever be a time. This might take more coordination than is possible with these things, but you put like four different The Office characters in four corners of the country, and they just make their way across minor league towns until they all meet in Scranton or Moosic, I guess in this specific case.
Well, that would be a wonderful thing to do. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's going to
It's
really
just my pitch. It's
anyone's
just
going
a
to
pitch for
put
an
all that
idea.
coordination into it, but I think that would be an excellent thing to do. But yeah, a lot of promos going on right now. Those are some recent ones that either just happened or about to happen. I'm working on a new promo preview column right now, so I've got a lot of July highlights to talk about next week, and yeah, a lot of pots on the stove right now in
Mm.
terms of upcoming stuff and some stuff we're going to get to today. I mean, one thing to the next, right?
Yeah, no, this is a lot going on in this week's episode. We have not one, but two interviews. And we're going to start in Ontario, California. We'll get to more California stuff next week, but this week we are in Ontario. And Kelsey Hennigan, who is a Southern California native and lives out there currently, one of our coworkers, went to Ontario to visit with the Tower Buzzers and specifically interviewed Ontario manager John Shoemaker. Now, Ben, you wrote up something using this interview and just built it up a little bit more in terms of context with John Shoemaker. But he's not just a minor league manager. This is, you talk about minor league lifer, you talk about Dodgers lifer. John Shoemaker certainly fits. What else can you tell us about him before we hear his conversation with Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, he's the quintessential minor league organizational lifer. 2026 is his 50th season with the Dodgers, unbroken. He was drafted by the Dodgers in 1977, and here in 2026, he is piloting the Ontario Tower Buzzers through their inaugural season. And this is now his sixth straight season managing Los Angeles's Class A California League affiliate because he spent the last 5 seasons in Rancho Cucamonga with the Quakes. Then after some affiliation switches, um, the Dodgers affiliate is of course now Ontario, so he went with the California League high single A affiliate in the Dodgers system, and now he's doing it with Ontario. But 50 straight years, 50 straight seasons with one organization. I was supposed to go to Ontario this year and ended up not going on that trip, and it was great that Kelsey, who now lives fairly close to Ontario,
Drivable distance.
drivable distance, that she was able to go out there, talk to John Shoemaker, did a great job with the interview, And one thing in writing the story based on this conversation that I hadn't seen mentioned elsewhere, but I'm fairly certain I got this right, is that John Shoemaker, who entered the season with 1,915 wins, third among active managers, he's done it all with the Dodgers organization. And I believe, and if anyone can disprove me, it's not a fight. I hope you can. I just want to get things right. But he is number one on the list with most minor league managerial wins with one organization all time. No one else has gotten that many wins for one organization, or for that matter, just managed as many games for one organization than John Shoemaker has with the Dodgers. 50 seasons. So an impressive guy. And I'm glad that Kelsey got to talk to him and we got to listen.
Okay, great. So, I know you were a two-sport athlete at Miami. What did you learn from your time playing basketball?
Well, growing up, basketball was always a favorite along with baseball. Uh, Basketball takes a lot of teamwork. Baseball, it takes teamwork, but it's more of an individual sport. It's you against the ball. It's you against the pitcher. It's you against the other team. Basketball is a little bit different, and I felt like there was a chance to show some leadership qualities on the basketball court, and I think I picked that up.
Before you got drafted by the Dodgers, what did you know about them? What was your impression of the Dodgers?
I knew it was a good organization, but I lived in Ohio, so we were big Cincinnati Red fans. Um, I knew Jackie Robinson's story, but not until I really got into the Dodger system did it really sink into me how special that was and how proud we all are to have Jackie Robinson on our side.
I was looking at your stats and it's pretty good, but how would you describe yourself as a player?
Just average, just average. I see now why I didn't last too long once I got into the coaching side. I was probably more of an athlete type than just a regular baseball player. I felt like I could help a team win, but didn't have really major league tools.
And then when you got drafted by the Bulls, how were you able to make that decision to stick with baseball?
Pretty easy. I went to the tryout camp and didn't make it. I was playing in that summer in '78 in the California League, actually, and they said, well, you won't be coming to our rookie camp here in July. Just come in September to the main camp, which I did, and about four of us were there that we knew we didn't really have much of a shot, but it was just a chance to go do it, and we were there, and we got sent out.
And then that same year, you mentioned the California League. I know you were part of two triple plays in one game, which is just like unique to minor league baseball. I feel like, what was that like, and have you ever seen anything like that since?
Well, you did a lot of research. Yeah, I think it's coming up in July. I don't think anybody's ever done that in any league, two in one game. It was happened actually in the first four innings of the game. There was a pitcher, it was in his first pro game, and he was wild. One that came with first and second, no outs, and one that came, I think the bases might have been loaded. One was a ground ball, one was a line drive. Just happened to be in the middle of it at second base, and I guess it is part of history, but not many people know about it.
And then was it difficult to make that transition or make that decision to switch to managing or coaching?
Always wanted to get into coaching. My father was a coach, and I've been around basketball and baseball my whole life, from whenever I can remember moving around. So I felt like that was what I was going to do anyway. I actually felt I was going to be more in basketball than I would be in baseball, but when this opportunity came with the Dodgers, it was something you couldn't really pass up. And then after being with the Dodgers for a while, I can't even imagine there's anybody close to being like the Dodgers in professional baseball.
You've won a lot of awards, mainly for your work ethic, the Cool Ball, Captain of Player Development, Southern League Hall of Fame. Where do you get your work ethic from?
Honestly, don't know. I do think, though, that some people are born with it. It's tough to somebody who's not a good worker. Sometimes it's tough to get them to work. I just guess I felt like that I had to work that way to make it. I wasn't really a superstar. Even in basketball, I felt like I had to do extra things, be a team guy, be the first one to dive on the floor, be the first one to take a charge, be the first one to pass the ball off to an open teammate and not worry about myself. I just understand, I guess, that that's kind of what you're supposed to do, and I just try to instill that with the rest of our team.
Yeah, how do you handle a player who maybe doesn't have that work ethic?
Try to motivate them a little bit, and it's not trickery, but somehow you have to make them believe that if they don't do what they're going to do, then they may not be around a while. And it's not really a trick because that's actually true. Sometimes kids need just one or two little things, and some need it every day. And just tell a guy how good he is. I don't really have a secret. Everybody's a little bit different.
What's been some of your proudest moments or maybe some players you've coached through your career?
I'm not going to go to any proudest moments. I guess just being with the Dodgers is proud enough. Probably the two most special people, other than everybody, would probably be Clayton Kershaw and Adrian Beltre. Those guys were people that were on teams that I managed, and there were many others that included other Hall of Famers, Pedro Martinez, and the Dodgers have been lucky, and so we've been lucky to have that many good players come into our system, that we've all had a chance to work with them, and it wasn't us that made their career. We were just a small part of it.
Could you tell they were special from the beginning?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Beltre was 18 years old and one of the top players in the league, and you could just tell Kershaw when he came into pro ball, he was a special guy.
And then how has the Dodgers organization and baseball in general evolved over the last 50 years?
They're still the most cherished franchise in the sports world, and they're never going to lose that. I think that's it. Some people have a moment in time. The Dodgers have had a moment in baseball history, and I think they're going to just continue with that. I'm really proud to be here. Things have changed. There's more people working in baseball. There's more coaches. There's more analytics. There's a different way of thinking. Pitchers are throwing harder. Batters are hitting the ball harder and farther and longer, trying to hit it in the air more. Pitchers are trying to pitch up in the strike zone more, trying to make the ball move. So there's a lot of things that have changed, and that's one thing we talk about, being able to adapt and be flexible. So if we talk about it and then we can't do it, then why are we mentioning it?
And then what's your favorite part of the job? Like, what keeps you coming back?
The uniform. Coming to the park every day and knowing there's going to be 25 or 30 guys that walk into that clubhouse that I feel responsible for. And I'm at the age now where most of these people, I maybe could be their grandfather, some of them. And I feel like I've got a job to do to treat them like I was treated as a kid.
And then just lastly, what do you want players to take away from their time with you?
That they were taught how to become a professional, how to work hard, and what it meant to be a Dodger.
LinkedIn is pretty amazing at helping you grow your small business. We cannot make your email response time faster. We can help you sell, market, and hire in one place. We cannot help you find space for your 3 desk drinks. Why do you have 3? And while we can't help you find the perfect volume for your presentation video, LinkedIn can help you find the perfect audience for your business. Grow your small business on LinkedIn. Learn more at linkedin.com/smallbusiness.
That was John Shoemaker, the ultimate baseball lifer, the ultimate Dodgers organizational lifer, now celebrating his 50th season in the organization. And now we have another interview on a different topic, but on June 19th, Juneteenth, as it were, the Hickory Crawdads paid tribute to the 1951 Granite State Graniteers, also known as the Rocks. It was their 1951 Rocks night, and that team was abysmal, but has a fascinating history. And it was cool to talk to someone in the front office, Ashley Salinas, about how this promotion came about, and a good example of really digging into your team's history to find those little quirky nooks and crannies that can really yield a lot of interesting information. And that's certainly what the Crawdads had when they paid tribute to the 1951 Rocks, the Granite State Graniteers. So let's listen to that now. On June 19th, the Hickory Crawdads celebrated the 75th anniversary of the 51 Rocks, a team otherwise known as the Granite Falls Graniteers of the Western Carolina League, a team that went 14-96 among many other claims to fame or claims to infamy. An interesting minor league baseball story, and we wanted to learn more about the 51 Rocks and this promo that the Hickory Crawdads had. So we have Ashley Salinas, the Assistant General Manager of Marketing and Merchandise for the Hickory Crawdads. Thanks for being here, Ashley.
Yep, thanks for having me. Excited to kind of talk a little bit about the Rocks.
Yeah, the 1951 Granite Falls Graniteers celebrating the 75th anniversary. I mean, 75th anniversary is a big round number, but this is a team that, one, was very bad, and two, not much information existed, which is why we wanted to talk to you about how a promotion like this comes together, how you came to celebrate this team.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of started doing a little bit of research, wanted to see kind of what we could come up with for theme night. So I was looking at building off of something like the Peagle that the Rangers did, where they created their own animal from two different ones. So we started researching local teams. I didn't find any fun animals to make, but I did find the 51 Rocks and just kind of saw that they were the worst record in professional baseball history with that 125 winning percentage. And just started looking into it a little bit more, and everything that I was able to find, which wasn't a ton, just kind of was definitely very intriguing and something that we were just trying to look at for 26, and it ended up being the 75th anniversary, and what a better time to tell that story.
Yeah, and information was hard to come by. So one, how did you find information about the team? And then two, just I mean, I'm sure you know more than I do, obviously, but just in the press, all I know is from the press release. But this team went through 5 managers, changed its name, had some goofy promotions, trying to change its luck. Didn't have a score at the end of the year. Ended up integrating the league towards the end of the year. I mean, a lot going on here. So, how did you piece together this story, and then we can get into some of those specifics?
Yeah, it just kind of started, just seeing that record on, I think it was like a Wikipedia page or something like that. I'm like, okay, well, this isn't a good just source alone. So I found a book that was written by a bat boy at the time for them that season. I mean, he kind of was happened to be documenting most of what was happening throughout the year. I touched base with the local expert on kind of Negro leagues, and he was able to find a reference in another book, kind of providing a little bit more context of the situation and kind of everything that was happening that year. But pretty much everything that we were able to put in the press release is kind of everything that was out there with information wise. Like we reached out to local libraries, they didn't have any additional information. Could never find an actual picture of the Rocks. So when it came time to design the jerseys, we were like, okay, well, Granite Falls, what if we just made the jersey look like a granite texture in honor of the local town? So kind of that's where the jersey texture came in, and then we put in kind of old school piping and designed our own logo and numbers to kind of look like rocks. So
And you mentioned finding this book written by a bat boy. I mean, just describe what the book was like. You said it's almost like a diary. Like it sounds like he was just writing about what the season was like. But was this mass published? Was this like a diary that was in an attic somewhere? How did you come across this bat boy book specifically?
I think it's not a very long book, but he kind of wrote it like documenting like his progression throughout the season and how like the team started. He all throughout the season. So even he was going with the team even after all the official scorers quit. So we still had some type of documentation for the team. But it was definitely not mass published. It was a little paperback book that did happen to be free on Kindle. So it was an easy read, just kind of knocked it out in a day. But not something you usually see on shelves around town.
It's incredible how deep the Kindle library can be, I suppose.
It is. Yes.
And you mentioned talking to a Negro Leagues expert in terms of how this team integrated and why it's integrated. Just tell us that part of the story and what you learned.
Yeah, he didn't actually know a ton to start with, but he found another book, kind of history, some of the Carolinas as well, and they had a little 5-page section of the book dedicated to the 51 Rocks and kind of talking about some of the players that they had to end the season. As you can imagine, a team that is struggling with just 14 wins throughout a course of a season, they're going through quite a few players. Anybody that they have is moving on to other opportunities or some people just gave up completely and retired during the season. So there was a few roster holes to fill. So the owner at the time was like, "Hey, we need like five-ish more guys to finish the season, or we're going to forfeit these games." So they went over to Ridgeview High School here in Hickory and signed five players to end the season. The book kind of documents it as a very dramatic entrance for these players as he's driving alongside the bus with these players in his car on the way to the stadium, being like, "No, we're not forfeiting. We have the guys. Like, just look in the back seat." So, um, kind of showed up and they debuted August 25th. But because there was no official score left at that point, they didn't really get full credit for their appearances because there was no box scores turned into the league. So I think that kind of is possibly why the story is very lesser known.
But it should be better known because even though it was a strange set of circumstances that led to this happening. I mean, these were the first black players in the Western Carolina League. This is 1951. Frank Boney Fleming, catcher Bill Smith. Boney Fleming was a pitcher. Catcher Bill Smith, pitcher Christopher Rankin, catcher Russell Shuford, and outfielder Eugene Abernathy. I mean, that's a significant moment in baseball history, even if it maybe didn't feel like it at the time. They were maybe operating more with a desperate sense of desperation. But you staged this promotion on Juneteenth, and what did you do at the ballpark? Telling that story specifically and tying it into a larger Juneteenth theme.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy thing to tell because, you show up and you have a lot of fans that are, "Hey, we're here for the fireworks," or, "Hey, we're just here because the crawdads are in town." So how do you try to inform the fans of this long, complicated story of the Rock? So we kind of had just definitely a rotation of slides going through, telling the story. We worked with the local middle school who is actually using that stadium now, the MS Steel Stadium where the Rocks played is part of Granite Falls Middle School now. So they let us come out. We took a player out there for a photo shoot, so we were using those pictures on our board kind of as the jersey reveal, kind of telling the story, just to have some media out there. And then we kind of had some fun with the night too, including every rock pun we could think of in our scripts and playing some games about rocks and everything too. But definitely try to tell that story across the video board with messaging and kind of some little PA reads as well, just promoting the history and backstory to educate people of the rocks.
Yeah, and what was the reaction both in the ballpark and just in the community in the days since in terms of learning about a team that I'm sure 99.9% of people didn't even know existed, never mind that it was their 75th anniversary.
It was definitely all very positive. A lot of people were like, "Wow, we didn't know that, this happened just a few miles away from the ballpark." People that have lived here their whole lives, it's not a story that is really talked about too much. So that's part of the really cool thing with minor league baseball is you get this avenue to tell these stories and bring them to life. And, it's a story that has a lot of cultural significance and really should be told. So getting to see it take the field in a specialty jersey and all the social media promotion that we were able to do, with the initial release, definitely a lot of positives and people being like, "Well, this was really like a cool thing." And then seeing it come to life as well, just the whole process.
Yeah, and moving forward, I mean, is this going to become, I know, it won't be like Ben said earlier, a nice round number moving forward, but now this is a moment in the town's history that you can keep coming back to. Do you envision this being an every year thing? And also, I mean, given what you found, are you going to be spending all off season in the library, like knowing
Yeah,
that these types of rocks are there to be overturned?
yeah, I like the pun there. Just kind of, I think the Rock's definitely looking right now, probably just kind of that 1 year 75th anniversary, but you know, definitely always want to keep researching. Maybe I will find that next special animal to create for a TNC identity, but because you never know what's out there when you're researching your community. And you see it with TNC identities all the time, was just what you're able to unearth about it and share. And sometimes those stories just kind of resonate with that community locally or nationally, just what you're able to find. So definitely always looking to do more research. We'll see what we find.
Excellent. And I always feel compelled to point out TNC is Theme Night Collection, meaning alternate identities, we often call them, but obviously a huge part of minor league baseball promotions. And speaking about promotions, yeah, this 1951 team was really down on its luck, and they had that Black Cat Night promotion where they encouraged teams to bring black cats to the ballpark to turn their luck around. Can you draw some inspiration from that? Maybe if the crawdads are struggling, bring some black cats in. Is there anything you can do to bring the energy of this 1951 team to the ballpark today?
Yeah, I mean, if your luck can't get any worse, you might as well try to break every superstition that's out there. So, um, thankfully, I was very nervous about putting this night out there. Like, oh my God, what if we're celebrating the worst team and what if we get crushed? Because when we've played as these alternate identities, sometimes I think our record is something like 3-15 or something. It's
Oh.
historically very bad for the Crawdads. Um, so, as we're, it was just a specialty jersey night for us, but if we got crushed, would I hear it from fans or managers or anything like that? Like, what would be the reaction of that? Because, we're purposely playing as this bad team, but thankfully we know we won 10-0. So reverse course. We didn't need to break out the black cats or walk under ladders, but, um, stuff like that's always kind of fun. They weren't doing a ton of promotions back in 1951, but to see them do Black Cat Night, it's very on brand for minor league baseball.
Yeah, very on brand, and I guess this promo rocked. That's lame. I can't come up with a better one. Yeah, I should have wanted to end it on a high note, but I just couldn't do it. So anyway, Ashley, thanks so much for speaking with us about the 1951 Granite Falls Graniteers. Really cool promotion, and hope to see more stuff like that in the future, celebrating these nooks and crannies of minor league history.
Yep, thank you for having me.
All right, now pivoting away from our interviews section this week, now let's talk about some of the things that's happening across minor league baseball on the field, particularly when it comes to prospects. And one thing I want to draw everybody's attention to first is Mike Sirota's on base streak in the Dodgers system, which as of Thursday, and I might be jinxing him here, and I apologize if that's the case by the time you guys listen to this, but as of Thursday, entering Thursday, he has a 60-game on-base streak this season in the minor leagues. As you would expect, that's the longest active streak. It's the longest streak of any kind, at least on base this season. Nobody else has an on-base streak longer than 55 games. If you want to, you have to go all the way back to 2018 to find a longer streak in the minors in terms of getting on base. And that was 66 games by Nick Martini in 2018. During this 60-game run for Mike Sirota, which began all the way back, think about how different the world was back then, on April 9th. Now it's currently running through June 24th. Over those 60 games, he's batting .344. His on-base percentage is .487, and he's slugging .601. He's got a .1088 OPS, 11 homers in that span, 56 walks in 60 games. You kind of expect, right? If it's on base, you're probably taking a lot of walks. There are a few offers in there that have been helped by a couple walks here and there. But one thing I want to point out here too is that it's happened at two different levels. He started out the year at High A Great Lakes, got promoted to Double A Tulsa May 19th, has basically been trucking ever since. Of those 60 games, according to the portal that I'm looking at right now, half of them have been with Great Lakes and half of them have been with Tulsa. As you might expect, the numbers with Great Lakes were a little bit better than they have been with Tulsa, but Tulsa 30 games, 321 average, 465 OBP, 518 slug. Mike Sirota, you might remember, came over from the Reds system very shortly after he was drafted. He was included in that trade that sent Gavin Lux from the Dodgers to the Cincinnati Reds. He was a third-round pick out of Northeastern University, and he was their best prospect, arguably, since Carlos Pena in 1998. Actually, somebody who entered the year with a lot of hype and that really tailed off, dropped him to the third round, has joined the Dodger system, and has been really exceptional since last year, since that trade. He had a right knee injury that cut his season short last year. That's reason why he started out the year in the Midwest League at High A. Basically just get his feet under him again. But also, I mean, as I've said on the show multiple times, and I've said in many other mediums, the Dodgers outfield situation is absolutely bonkers. There's only so many outfield spots, obviously, and you got to find playing time for all these guys. But Josue De Paula, Zaire Hope, Eduardo Quintero, Mike Sirota, Kendall George, who has returned to play this week after he was dealing with a left kneecap injury. A lot of these guys, Charles Davelin, who's in our top 100 now, are concentrated around the A plus to double A levels. And, when you look at how the year opened with DePaula and Hope, two top 25 overall prospects in baseball, and Kendall George coming off a 100 steal season, sort of had to go somewhere. So they sent him back to high A. I think the fact that George has been hurt, obviously you don't wish on that on anybody, but that's allowed them to get all of these guys playing time in double A Tulsa. With George coming back now, and it seems like he'll be back in the Texas League if all goes well by July. The Dodgers are going to have another good problem on their hands soon. Maybe somebody like Jose DePaula moves up to AAA Oklahoma City at just 21 years old, but they're going to have to sort that out. But they've done an exceptional job at identifying talent, acquiring talent. Zaire Hope also acquired from another organization. He came over from the Cubs a few years ago. Internal development. We talk about it over and over with the Dodgers. I don't know if this is, I can't even say it's identifying types because these are different types of players. Mike Sirota, for all the emphasis here on him having a really good approach and willingness to take his walks. He's got above average power. He's got plus speed too. And he can be a pretty quality center fielder. DePaula is somebody who's definitely going to end up in a corner. Zaire Hope, I think, could certainly play in center field. Doesn't have necessarily the same hit tool as a Sirota does right now. Might have a tick more power. But at some point, they're going to have to cash these guys in via trades, or it's going to be really interesting to see how it all sorts out. I mean, they're all not guaranteed hits. We know that. But it's going to be a really interesting decision series of decisions that are going to come, not just to place these guys within the minor leagues, but who gets called up first, who gets that opportunity, who earns that opportunity. So we will keep an eye on the Dodgers outfield system, and especially Mike Sirota, who by the time you guys hear this might have a 61 game on base streak, might have a 62 game on base streak if you listen to it over the weekend. What a run for him. And I wanted to make sure that I got some shine here. Also, speaking of outfielders, we made some recent additions to the MLB Pipeline Top 100 guys we added to the bottom of the list. And these are two who I was excited to get on the list. They're two guys who you look at, coming into the year, were they necessarily top 100 candidates? I wouldn't put it that way. But they kept looking like breakouts. And the longer it went on, the longer it became clear that they need to be on the top 100 list. And they are Josiah Hartshorn, who's an outfielder / first baseman in the Chicago Cubs system, and Eric Hartman, an outfielder in the Atlanta Braves system. Hartshorn was a 6th round pick last year by the Braves, but actually signed for $2 million, which was a record for the 6th round. It's essentially early 2nd round money to get him away from Texas A&M. Still some questions about where does he land defensively? He might end up being a first baseman long term, but he's a switch hitter and somebody who's already gone from single A to high A. And I say this all the time, right? Listen to what the organizations are telling us about their prospects by how they push them and where they place them. And the fact that Hartshorn got promoted from single A Myrtle Beach after only 39 games and moved up to high A at just 19 years old was certainly telling that the Cubs thought he was worthy of a new challenge, and he's absolutely taken it on exceptionally well in the Midwest League. In 26 games since joining South Bend, he's batting .348 with a .416 on-base percentage and a .717 slug. He's got 9 homers in those 26 games, 3 steals as well. So 14 homers on the year so far for him in 65 games. The on-base is .421. The slug is .563. OPS is .984. Again, just somebody who we thought could be above average hit, above average power, and it's certainly playing up to that now. And the more he hits for power at a higher level like this, I don't know if 700 slugging percentage is sustainable in any way, but it's certainly looking better and better by the week. So Josiah Hartshorn joins at number 99. And then Eric Hartman was a 20th round pick in 2024 by the Braves, coming out of Alberta, Canada. So you might have expected it's going to be a little bit of a longer burn with him. He was on the Braves' radar coming into the year, but was thought of as kind of a, I will say, speed first type, 70 grade on the 2080 scale there for him coming into the year. Was pretty good last year between brief time in the Florida Complex League, and then at single A Augusta, but had a 718 OPS, was just slugging 374, stole 44 bags, but only had 5 homers. As we sit here now for high A Rome, he has 18 homers in 65 games. The speed is still there. He stole 29 bags in that time. His slash line is 302, 362, 569. And my colleague Jonathan Mayo and I, every once in a while we'll look and be like, oh, well, Eric Hartman's kind of trailing off, and he's doing that a little bit again now. In his last 10 games, he's batting 256 with a 267 OBP and 419 slug. And then he turns it around again. I know a lot of people are kind of waiting for him to get called up to Double A Columbus. I guess you want him to stop riding that roller coaster a bit, but the fact that the power is playing like this and you can add that to the speed, I mean, he's already on track to be a potential 2020 guy, maybe before the All-Star break, if he can get 2 more homers. Like I said, 18 homers right now, 29 stolen bases. He's having one of the better all-around seasons in all of minor league baseball. That is for sure. At 20 years old, just turned 20 on June 16th. So Eric Hartman, there have actually been a lot of really good positive developments from the Brave system. I think he's the poster boy for that. And so Eric Hartman gets on the top 100 for now at number 100. I say for now, and this is our third bullet here for the on-field section, because next week we will be doing what we call market corrections for the top 100 at MLB Pipeline. I've talked about this before, but just to reiterate for anybody who doesn't know, around every 6 weeks or so, we will update the top 100. It's not a full update. We're not voting 1 to 100 and mixing it all up like that. But we revote on the top 15. In this case, it's actually going to be the top 16 because Colt Emerson's going to graduate, I believe, one day after we push out the new update. So we wanted to vote 1 to 16, just knowing that he's going to move out pretty quick. But we revote 1 to 15 to give us, a fresher look at right at the top. And then everybody else from 17 down to 100 will evaluate should they move up or down 10 or more spots. If they don't, then we just leave them as is. So there will be a lot of movement. I'm not going to lie to you. I've gone through the sheet. There's some greens for guys who move up 10 spots. There's oranges for guys who move down. There's reds for guys who move out completely. It's going to be a new fresh coat of paint on it. But just to give you an idea of some of the folks, this is a little bit preview, and I'm not going to tell you who or where exactly they're going to be going, I should say. But you look at somebody like Raniel Rodriguez, who, as it stands right now, we have ranked at number 22 overall. He's absolutely a top 16 candidate. A little bit of a bumpy start at Double A Springfield, but has absolutely taken off here in recent weeks. I believe he has 7 homers in his last 11 games. Very much looking like the power hitting catcher that we all thought. And again, circling back to what I said about Hartshorn and the way he got promoted, the Cardinals are trying to tell us something about the way they view Raniel Rodriguez. And they thought, at just 19 years old, he can take his lumps and get up to Double A, and that's going to be the learning experience they want for him long term. So he joins the ranks of Jesus Madej and Leo DeVries, certainly guys within the number 1 overall discussion, and some of these others that have been pushed really aggressively to Double A. Him getting there at 19, now hitting his stride, he's going to be in the conversation for that. Somebody like Mike Sirota, who I mentioned earlier, he's at 39 right now. He'll be in the conversation for top 16 because of how good, his whole process has been. And we know what the power can be. We know what the speed can be. He's looking like a good all-around package. Theo Gillen, the Tampa Bay Rays system, he's number 39 for us right now. He got promoted to Double A Montgomery just in the last week. A little bit of a bumpy start there. He's only 2 for 9 so far, but somebody who we thought coming into the year, really good hit tool. You can project maybe average power for him while he's beating maybe even that curve right now with 12 homers in 57 games at High A Bowling Green that allowed the Rays to be aggressive with him. He's also a really good runner. 28 stolen bases on the year this year. He's taken really well to center field. He was, drafted as an infielder with the expectation that he would move to the grass. He's taken to that. Now, when you add in the power, you look at Theo Gillen as being, I wouldn't necessarily say a 5-tool talent because I think the arm's still going to be maybe average at best, but everything else is above average to maybe plus. And, the Tampa Bay Rays certainly have the star of their system now. Theo Gillen will be in the conversation for that. Some other names that I'll give you just in terms of guys who I think could make pretty big jumps. Let's see here. Joshua Baez, we've talked about a lot. He's ranked at number 64 now. Just the way he's hitting the ball hard, hitting it consistently, hitting it in the air. I think he's somebody who could make a leap. Ryan Sloan, we have outside of the top 16 right now. He's entered that echelon for me with Cade Anderson, with Seth Hernandez for like who is the top pitching prospect in baseball. I think that's a debate that we're going to have basically until all three of those guys graduate, to be honest with you. I don't think we're in a situation right now where there's a clear number one pitching prospect in baseball, kind of like we had coming into the year with Nolan McLean. I think those three guys, they're interesting. They're all three different types of pitchers. But I think Ryan Sloan has earned the right with the way he's pitched at Double-A Arkansas and taken to that really aggressive assignment right alongside Cade Anderson to move into at least our top 16. We're still banging out the list. I encourage you. I believe it's going to be going live next Monday night. Don't hold me to that. Who knows exactly what the timeline will be, because this is baseball. After all, things could jump in front of us. But expect a top 100 update from MLB Pipeline next week, and I will be doing the write-up explaining why we move guys up or down 10 spots, why we move guys into the top 16, why we remove guys from the top 100, and hopefully that'll get us prepped. We're already seeing some trades, right? David Pearson just got traded from the Mets to the Cubs. That brought in a top 30 prospect, not quite a top 100 prospect, but if we're already seeing moves like that involving notable names, both at the major league and minor league levels, and that prospect was Cole Mathis, I should say, righty hitting corner infielder from the Cubs to the Mets, now at number 14 in the Mets system. If that's already happening, who knows what's around the corner in terms of some blockbusters and everything that's to come before the August 3rd trade deadline. So keep an eye out for that early next week. We'll discuss it more in detail on next week's podcast when I can explicitly say this is where Raniel Rodriguez ranks. This is where this person ranks. This is what the top 5 looks like now, which I think is going to be a really interesting conversation. So tune in for that next week. But before we go, Ben will join me on the other side of this break for another edition of Name That Dude. Catch you then. All right, wrapping up here on the show before the show. We are actually going to do a dude this week, even though it is just Ben and myself. But before we get to that, our thanks again to Kelsey Hennigan for conducting that interview with Ontario manager John Shoemaker, and Ashley Salinas of the Hickory Crawdads for joining us earlier for that discussion about the 51 Rocks. Really enjoyed both of those. And that's exactly the type of stuff that I like talking to others and bringing others on this show to talk about. So even though it is the two of us, I picked this dude for 2 reasons, and they will become known very soon, I think. I don't think this is going to take very long for Ben to get this dude, but I will start giving out biographical data of him now. So this dude was drafted by, and here we go, the Philadelphia Phillies. Yes. In the 25th round of the 1980 draft out of Arkansas City High School in Arkansas City, Kansas.
They probably pronounce that Arkansas.
They probably do. Arkansas City High School in Arkansas City, Kansas. This player signed despite being a 25th round pick out of high school. So immediately jumped into the Phillies farm system. 1980, he played 37 games with the Helena Phillies in the Pioneer League, which is just a very fun concept to me. 1981 moves up to the Spartanburg Phillies of the South Atlantic League. Very methodical growth here. 1982 goes to the Peninsula Pilots, who played their games in Hampton, Virginia. That is in the Carolina League. 1983 Now we're in familiar territory here. Up to Double A with the Reading Phillies. No fighting Phils just yet. But he also debuts with the Phillies in the major leagues that year. No AAA time in 1983, but does get in 2 games with the Phillies that year. This is his age 21 season. 1984, completely in AAA for 80 games. You already know who it is? Okay, wow. What was it that tipped off?
Because I was so obsessive with reading the backs of baseball cards as a kid, with especially players in the 1980s. And I know that this player debuted in 1983, was back in the minor leagues in 84, then back on the Phillies in like 85, all the way. And then didn't really become a starter until 89, went on to lead the National League in RBIs, ended his career with the Marlins. Yeah.
That is correct. Yeah, no, I don't really have to go through the rest of this. We'll just name some of the teams he played for here real quick. The Portland Beavers were the Phillies AAA team in 1984 and 1985. Can only imagine what it was like trying to call up a player. I wonder how much of that factored into why he wasn't called up. But anyway, 1987, 20 games with the Maine Guides. There's one of our favorite defunct minor league teams, and also 9 games with the Clearwater Phillies in 1987. I assume that was on rehab. 1991 with Scranton Wilkes-Barre for 2 games, with then called the Red Barons. The Reading Phillies for just 1 game in 91. Back with Clearwater in 96. Not yet the Threshers, still the Phillies, but that was 1 rehab game there. And as you mentioned, Ben, in 1997 was his final season, played 136 games that year, but split it between the Phillies and the Florida Marlins. The Marlins were the only non-Phillies team he ever played for.
Yeah,
Now,
he went out as a world champion.
he went out as world champion. Ben, who is that dude?
Yeah, Darren Dalton, RIP. I mean, yeah, anytime you pick the Phillies from the 80s, I'm going to be right all over that. Um, Darren Dalton was a guy I was aware of when I was a kid, and he was just like a backup catcher. And so I had his baseball card, didn't think much of him. But I still remember I was at the Jersey Shore and I was watching a Phillies Mets game, and Pat Combs on the Phillies, who was he would have been in your orbit back in the day. He was one of their top prospects. Didn't have a great career, but he hit Dwight Gooden with a pitch in a game, and Dwight Gooden charged the mound, and Darren Dalton ran from behind and tackled Dwight Gooden on his way to the mound. And from that day on, I was a Phillies fan. It's just the fight that Darren Dalton showed, and I was such a partisan for the Phillies back then that, like, I really wanted my guys to be part of that fight. And then in any time the Phillies got on a brawl, now I'm just going to go on tangents forever. Harry Callis would always make a point of saying that Irish Mike Ryan was running in from the bullpen. He was the Phillies like bullpen coach, and he was just like an older coach, and he always called him Irish Mike Ryan. But you knew whenever the Phillies were in a fight, Irish Mike Ryan was going to join the fray. I remember that as well. And I also remember that Darren Dalton, he was married for a time to a woman who was a model, and there's a picture of him with I believe she was his ex-wife at the time, but in a Hooters ad that was in the Clearwater ballpark where they had spring training. And there's like a picture of Darren Dalton, like incidentally in front of a billboard that featured his ex-wife on it. I believe that was the case, something like that. But yeah, Darren Dalton was a big favorite of mine, as he was of many kids growing up in the Philadelphia area in the 80s and 90s. You look at his career stats and they don't scream franchise icon, but he had like a presence and a longevity. I even went to a Darren Dalton tribute night at the Vet with posters. And I remember even at that night looking at his stats and being like, why does it seem like he was so much better, or that he was so much better than he actually was with the numbers he put up, and did lead the league in RBIs. And what was that, 1990?
1992. His age 30 season, he had 27 homers that year, 109 RBIs, led the National League. Kind of crazy to think only 109 RBIs could lead a league at that time, but so be it. 3-time All-Star, 1-time Silver Slugger, and as you said, part of the 1997 World Series winning Florida Marlins. In that series, he played all 7 games, went 7 for 18 with a homer and 2 doubles. So he played in 2 World Series, but finished his career with a 937 OPS in the World Series. That's pretty good. Obviously lost the 93 series to the Blue Jays, was 5 for 23 in that one with a homer and 2 doubles. So still found a way to contribute, but 1 World Series title for Darren Dalton. Now, Ben, I said there were two reasons why this might become apparent of why I chose Darren Dalton for our dude this week. Can you guess why I also chose him?
I don't know. I mean, first of all, R.I.P. Darren Dalton. He died of brain cancer. But why this week? I'm not sure where.
There's actually, we could say three reasons. But what was his nickname?
Dutch.
Where's Tyler right now?
He's in Amsterdam.
He is in Amsterdam. He's in the Netherlands. So I thought, well, we should go with a Dutch player. Why not go with the guy they called Dutch? Also, as we're speaking here on Thursday, the Netherlands men's soccer team is playing its final game of the group stage in the FIFA World Cup. It's just a convergence of Dutch things. I am also holding the mic right now, so there's another Dutch thing converging on this week's podcast. But I felt like, yes, we could do the naming of teams and naming of dudes that way because there's only two of us. But if I'm going to choose somebody from the 80s, 90s Phillies, it's not going to take us very long. And it didn't. So thank you for coming through, Ben.
No, of course. I mean, it just pops into my mind that when Darren Dalton was finally traded from the Phillies, they got Billy McMillan in return. Is that correct? I mean, just things are
just so you folks know this at home. Ben is not reading off Baseball Reference. I am reading off Baseball Reference, but Ben is not. He's doing this all off the dome. He's literally staring out the window right now as all of this is flooding to his mind. But yes, straight up for Billy McMillan. Darren Dalton for Billy McMillan on July 21st, 1997, right before the trade deadline. So anyways, Ben, thank you for your guessing. Thank you for doing those interviews earlier and getting us organized for the Ben's Biz Banter. Thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to Tyler, who is still editing this episode, even from afar. Hopefully we'll get the gang of us, all three of us, back at some point soon. But for everybody out there listening, thank you for listening. We'll catch you next week on the show before the show.